Do you see this in a similar way? You see that it's kind of obvious, or rather, it's very compelling that he would have known this sort of basso continuo partimento tradition.
Oh
And
yeah. So yeah, one of my examples I like to use. So when we go in Aserman Chapter 2, he has you doing 3-voice 7/6 chains. We're like, you know, stuff like that. And sometimes at that point, students are still saying, well, where am I going to find such a nice example of this in the literature? And I pull up my Chopin Ballades and I go to measure 36. And
oh,
just the left hand is pretty much exactly. Now, he kind of doubles back and then he skips a step. But, I mean, just the left hand, which I'm going to cheat and play with both hands. But
okay.
and then he skips one. And then he repeats it. And then... And so...
I think I found it. Is it this here? Okay.
Yeah,
So-
well, oh yeah, you don't have measure numbers.
Yeah. Yes. I'm
So
just
it's at
looking
the
at
so yeah, look at the tempo. That is interesting notation in the soprano. It is not quarter notes in my edition. I had to stare at that for a second.
I don't know what this is. I just pulled it up. I just grabbed something from my IMSLP. So that sort of like 7/6. And see, now I remember I used to put chord symbols on Chopin's etudes. I used to feel very smart about myself back in the day. But I feel like this is a little bit more useful for me, just to see kind of the way he might have thought. I know he studied counterpoint as well, quite seriously as well, in his training with maybe Elsner. And yeah, so like when you were playing it like that, can you play that again? That was very nice. That's very good. So now that we have the score up, maybe we can kind of look.
Yeah, and I'll also kind of pull your attention to the end of that first system where there is this is an example of stuffing the 2-voice framework with something else.
Yeah.
Instead of, which he could have just done that, but he's just giving it a little something extra, maybe something you wouldn't necessarily see as much in the 18th century, although, you know, not that it wouldn't exist. I mean, as soon as you say something didn't exist, we'll find an example in which Bach did that thing. So.
Yeah.
But here we got, I'll play from measure 36, so just the left hand. Really, the right hand almost doesn't even add to the progression. But here it is. Yeah, and it's the same
comes
thing.
alive with a little bit of insight, like that thing that we all just hear all the time. I mean, if we're familiar with, let's just take a minute to look at this, and then it just kind of opens up. That's brilliant. That's a great example. In terms of the forms, the polonaises, the mazurkas, the nocturnes, obviously these forms didn't exist in the 18th century. John Field, of course, I think he took the nocturne from John Field. So in terms of forms, that's different, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, Chopin, again, was a big opera buff. And in some of the nocturnes, I do feel like it's very much influenced by the bel canto aria, where it'll be kind of this rondo form, but then you'll have the increasing fioritura, so just more diminutions in the soprano, because that's what the singers did to show themselves off. And then people kind of joke, well, he was the best bel canto composer, too bad he hardly ever wrote for the voice.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.